joining us now. I'm in Montgomery. He's in Washington, D.C. We're a little far removed from each other today. Sometimes we're right next door. Congressman, 2nd District, Virginia Beach area, the Eastern Shore, all the way up through the peninsula. Republican, sits on the Appropriations Committee. By the way, one of the few freshmen in history that ever got to sit on the Appropriations Committee. Former Navy SEAL Scott Taylor. Congressman Taylor, good to have you, man.
Good morning, John. I'm live from D.C. I'm looking at the Capitol right now. I know you're down in Alabama. Good to be with you.
Beautiful day, isn't it?
It's a really beautiful day. I'm actually over here with Scott Weldon. We just did a CrossFit workout, so we're sitting outside right now trying to cool down before we have to go to work. But
all right,
yeah,
well,
it's beautiful.
I know Scotty's been working out there. He's losing weight, and pretty soon we won't even know who he is. He'll be so thin. But that's good. All right.
Basically almost a Backstreet Boy.
I know. He's done well. Okay, let's get to President Trump's tax cut plan that he laid out yesterday, simplifying the tax code, a huge middle class tax cut for cutting the corporate rate, which is the highest in the free world, 35% to 20%, getting an incentive to get our $5 trillion that's parked overseas back in the U.S., getting rid of the death tax, the most significant tax reform we've had, bigger than Reagan in 86, bigger than President Kennedy in 62. What do you make of it?
Well, I'm happy about it. I think I've been on your show, as a matter of fact, for me personally, and I said, look, there's 3 fundamental things I think we need to do. 1 is the repatriation of money. 2 is the corporate tax competitiveness. And 3 is to make sure that our working class folks, people who are working, get a break because they're paying more taxes in the history of the nation. And this plan does that. I mean, at least the outlines. Now, we don't have all the specific details yet. That's still going to be hashed out and sort of in the, honestly, it's up to the House to sort of fill in the details. But yesterday, all Republicans from the House had a little retreat, and we got this basic template, if you will, the structure that had been negotiated with the president. So far so good, man. It hits everything that I want to see. I grew up with a single mother, 4 kids in the house, really. So I know that disproportionately she would have benefited much more than somebody that's at the bottom or the top, just to have a little bit of money in her pocket. So I'm really excited about the middle class and the working class tax cut that's going to happen and the corporate rate. So far so good. And I can tell you that up here, as I'm sure you're interested in hearing, I walked by the Freedom Caucus meeting yesterday, and they're all on board too. And I haven't heard, in general, everyone seems to be excited and ready to move forward. Now, obviously, when we fill in the details, there'll be some push and pull, of course, but in general, everyone is moving and marching in the same direction, which is great.
Okay, this has got to pass, right? You look at this tax cut package, Scott Taylor, and everything is there that makes sense. The repatriation that you talked about, getting this $5 trillion home and setting up a system where it doesn't incent companies to park their money overseas, right? So that's number 1. Cutting the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the free world, and it's not even close. We're 50% higher than anybody else. We're higher than China, which is a communist country. We're higher than everybody. That's why we're not competitive. We have to do that. And a huge middle-class tax cut for working families, doubling the standard deduction, doubling the child care deduction, so that everybody knows if you're married and a 2-person household and you file jointly, the first $24,000 you make, not taxed. If you're an individual filer, the first $12,000 you make, you're not taxed a dime on it. I mean, this is a very significant tax.
And that's important to say,
cut.
John, because you saw the Dems already. Of course, they're like, oh, they're just giving to the wealthy, and they're punching the middle class or the poor in the gut because they're moving to the bottom 10% to 12%. But exactly what you just said, the folks that were paying 10% most likely aren't going to pay anything. It's going to be zero because it is, like as you said, the first $24,000 is not taxed. So most of the folks that pay 10%, that cap is at $18,000 something they're filing jointly at the moment. So they'll have zero. So everyone, it's being compressed. Everyone will pay a little bit less, and that's a great thing to jumpstart this economy and help folks that are, quite frankly, hurting and have been paying more tax than the history of the nation.
No question about it. And look, the liberals are going to tell you, the Democrats are going to tell you this is a tax cut for the rich and it's going to hurt, they're going to cut out school lunches. All that's nonsense. This has nothing to do with spending, right? We've already got a $20 trillion debt. This is not a spending reduction. That'll go through Congress. Hopefully someday you guys will actually do a budget. This is about tax reform.
The budget will be the budget resolution, because we have to get the budget resolution passed before the tax reform, because there are instructions in what's called reconciliation. We'll do that next week, and that budget has a lot of reductions moving forward. So it's a conservative budget, and we'll pass that next week. That's my prediction.
In order to get this passed in the U.S. Senate, both the budget and the tax reform, is that 50 votes or is it 60 votes?
Well, with the reconciliation, it's 50. But let me say that the retreat that we had yesterday, the negotiations with the White House and with the House, it's also with the Senate. So right now, with this core document that we've been talking about so far today, it has buy-in from the Senate, the House, and the White House. So yes, there'll be some fighting on the details. Of course, you'll have special interests that will try to keep their part of the pie. So we'll have to navigate through that. But at the moment, in this core document, the Senate has buy-in, the House has buy-in, and so does the White House.
Wow. When have we had that? Right? I don't think we've had that with anything.
You talked about Reagan and his. He didn't have that initially, so that it failed a couple times before it went through. What's different this time is, yes, you've had coordination from all three, the Senate, House, and the White House. So that's a great thing, coming in and starting with that.
All right, Sean from Newport News, he says, please ask Congressman Taylor, one of your constituents, what happens with the earned income tax credit?
What happens with the earned income tax credit?
Yeah, I don't think anything happens with that. That just stays. Right?
Right now, like I said, most tax credits will go away. You're looking at child care, you're looking at something for retirement, you're looking at something for housing deduction stays in. But all those details specifically, and I wish I had more details for him, we don't at the moment. Just the core stuff's there now. All the details will be getting filled in the next few weeks. But the goal is to get those, navigate through, get it done this year, so that come tax time next year, your checks are bigger. That's the
right. So you want to get this done. You want to get this done by Christmas. I think that's the goal. And just to answer Sean's question, Sean, what I've seen from the White House, and I've been in a couple of the meetings there, is that they don't intend to do anything with the earned income tax credit because, again, it turns it into a political football. And as far as tax cuts for the rich, the number of loopholes that this tax reform package is going to close, a lot of people think, Scott Taylor, that if you're in the 1%, you have a rigged tax system because they can take advantage of all these loopholes out there with all their tax lawyers and everything else that average people simply can't do. And so the system is rigged 1% for the upper tier of wealthy people. And what this tax reform package does is it takes all that off the table. So many people think when this is said and done that the 1% of society income earners, the top 1%, are actually end up paying higher than they're paying now. So that whole argument is a straw man, and it's a bogeyman, and it isn't going to fly. And it's really going to make the Democrats look ridiculous when you're talking about the biggest tax cut in history for working people. That's really what this is. I mean, you think about it. You have a family of, you're married, and you're filing jointly. The first $24,000 you make is not taxed. So if you're making $75,000, you're only paying taxes on 50 of that. 24, there is no tax. Huge difference for a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, healthcare. Looks like we're stuck with Obamacare forever, right? I mean, there's no alternative now.
Well, what I'll tell you is, obviously, that the Senate has backed off of doing anything about it. But yesterday, the vice president was with us for the retreat, and he said that during this Congress, it's coming back up. That's what he said. Obviously, he's the president of the Senate via the Constitution, and he's over there, and so that's what the VP said. So if he's correct, then the Senate will try it again. So we'll see.
Well, right now, though, we're going to get another round of major premium increases in Virginia in January, right? We can't do anything about it. You're not going to get anything done by then. People are going to be even more outraged than they are now. This thing is backfiring. So a lot of people fear, Scott Taylor, the next thing we're going to see is an Obamacare bailout. a bailout of insurance companies, some kind of a huge subsidy, taxpayer dollars in order to save the system. And the Democrats are going to say that the rates, I mean, I saw Jonathan Gruber the other day saying, well, the reason rates were going up is because the insurance companies don't like Trump. I mean, that's what he actually said on TV.
That's ridiculous.
They're raising the rates because he doesn't like Trump. I mean, isn't the insanity that goes on out there is incredible.
As though the rates weren't skyrocketing the whole time.
It's so stupid.
Yeah,
it's so stupid.
Pre-Trump, of course. But I saw that the individual market in Virginia is supposed to increase like 60% or something. It's just ridiculous. I hope the vice president, is correct and that they bring it back up because we need to deal with it. It's something that is affecting people all over Virginia, all over America. And they're getting, they're paying way too high premiums and not getting enough care, and it's just collapsing. So, I think they'll have to act. I think they'll be forced to act.
All right, Scott. The House Republicans are poised now to move $10 billion for a border wall. The House Republicans, the leadership, next week is going to begin moving legislation to provide billions of dollars, finally, for wall construction, to meet a key campaign promise that the president made. The House Homeland Security Committee will mark up the legislation. The Border Security Act for America on the 4th of October. We heard this yesterday. Mike McCall, your colleague, Texas chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, said he's going to provide $10 billion aimed at securing the border, $5 billion of that going straight to construction of the wall. Is that going to pass?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard exactly what you just said. Not yet, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Obviously, I'm not sure. I know that it will be political. It'll be a political fight. But as I've been on your show before, I spent time down at the border on all the sectors, and it's needed. Not take all the politics out of it. There's need for border wall down there. There's need for secondary fencing in San Diego. There's need for border wall in the McAllen, Texas area that has levee on it to deal with flooding as well too. There is a practical need for that. So I haven't heard exactly those details, but I imagine you're correct and it's coming up, and we'll see. But it'll be contentious. There's no question about it. But I think we can get it done.
Okay, final question, Scott. We're almost out of time. The president today, this just coming over the wire, so you're not going to have heard about this, but the president just now, minutes ago, in an executive order, has waived the shipping law blocking aid to Puerto Rico. And that is where you pay extra to go to the mainland. We've had that law in forever. And he's authorized a waiver just about 5 minutes ago so that we can get what we need to Puerto Rico without having to deal with that bureaucracy. I would assume you think that's a good idea, right?
I do, because, so it's the Jones Act, which has been in place for...
Right, the Jones Act.
American industry, which I don't oppose. I don't oppose the Jones Act, but when you're in an extreme situation when people are in need, all hands on deck, all assets on deck, get there and help folks out. And I know that the administration of Homeland had put something out that saying that the ports weren't capable of taking extra capacity, and that most of the need on the island is actually transit and moving from the port to get the supplies that are needed to the people where they need them. That being said, if there's anything that hinders aid and getting in to help these Americans out, because I know a lot of people didn't realize that Puerto Ricans are Americans, then I say do it. So I'm glad that he made that move. In fact, we called over to the Puerto Rico's delegate office yesterday to be like, hey, how can we be helpful? Do you need this the Jones Act suspended? Is that an actual need, or are people just playing politics? And so I'm glad that he did. So, like I said, all hands on deck, all supplies on deck. Do whatever you need to do to repeal bureaucracy or suspend it in order to help people that are to save their lives. So
right. So am I. But are you saying that in general, though, without this type of an emergency and a waiver, you're generally in favor of keeping the Jones Act in place?
I am, but I will tell you that in terms of Puerto Rico itself, there are studies out that show that Puerto Rico was sort of disproportionately harmed from it, and that it doesn't apply to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So that, and obviously Puerto Rico is debt-ridden right now, and now they have to rebuild. So in general, I'm in favor of the act, of course, to protect our industry here. But I think that in the case of Puerto Rico moving forward, we should look at it to see how it applies, because they're not only are they debt ridden right now, but they're going to need money to be able to rebuild themselves. And if this hurts that or harms that effort, I think that it should be looked at to potentially repeal it for Puerto Rico, just like you have for the Virgin Islands.
Okay, final question. You're a deficit hawk. I know that. You've railed against this out-of-control spending for a long time. This one, member of your own party, my former Congressman Tom Price in Georgia, spending $400,000 on private jets. The president not happy. Don't you think people like this that take advantage of taxpayers to this degree should be held accountable?
You're damn right. I don't know Mr. Price. Never even met him before. I'm sure he's a good guy. I have no idea. I don't know if all the details are true. What the reporting is, it's unacceptable. So yeah, absolutely, people should be held accountable.
I mean, he took a $30,000 private jet flight from Washington to Philadelphia that he could have ridden on the Amtrak first class Acela, which would have taken him 70 minutes for $90. You know, I think Scott
he's
Taylor,
the Secretary of Health. It's not like he's like the national security thing or something like that. So
yeah,
I don't think these things are acceptable. I just don't. I think they should be held accountable.
Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to change anything unless you make an example of somebody like this and saying, you know, you took this, you got confirmed by the Senate, and then you just abused the taxpayer. We're out of time. I want to thank Scott Taylor for being with us. More information, you can go to taylor.house.gov. We're out of time. Thank you, Scott. Always an honor to have you on.